Welcome to the Mind Vine podcast, where we challenge the stigma associated with mental illness through conversations about a variety of issues impacting mental health. Here we bring you news, views, and interviews that intrigue, educate, and celebrate recovery. Leading us on this journey are the hosts of the Mind Vine podcast, Darryl Mathers and Chris Bovie.
Welcome to the Mind Vine podcast. My name is Darryl Mathers, and I'm with my co-host, as usual, Chris Bovie. Chris, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Darryl?
Yeah, good. Live from the COVID-19 studios here, and I'm in Oshawa, and Chris is in Curtis. This is, I'm not sure how many episodes we've done now, virtually or through technology, but it's been 3+ months of the pandemic, and a lot of interesting things happening in the world right now. And we're going to touch on a few of those things with our next guest. But one of the things I think that's really neat is we're going to have Jack Armstrong, Raptors broadcaster, join us. It was about a year ago that Jack was here, and obviously it's nice that he remembered us and took our call, and we have that relationship. But having people like Jack affiliated with our hospital, affiliated with mental health, and to some degree, it's really important for the work we're trying to do, Chris?
Yeah, I think, it's people that have a platform and it's funny, and we'll touch a little bit about what's going on, in the States and around the world regarding racial inequality. But it's funny, as sometimes people question whether athletes or people of influence should be the voice or talking about it, but they have a platform. I know there's mixed feelings on it, but it's great, whether it's mental health or whatever the public discourse is to have somebody that has a platform that people respect and listen to and sort of drive the conversation. So that's great. By the way, did we get LA? Is that a new sponsor for the podcast we have?
Well, do we have it's the one advantage to memo. Well, it's the one advantage to working in my basement is I don't have to expose people to my.
That's okay. It's just I haven't got the hat yet.
Hair. No,
nobody sent me the hat.
No sponsors.
Yet, so it's in the mail. Okay,
no sponsors.
Right.
Yeah, I'm in my basement. This is my home office. So this is what you get. This is one advantage to being in a pandemic. But before we get to Jack, just a shout out to everybody on Ontario Shores and healthcare workers everywhere for all they're doing to keep everyone safe during the pandemic and from COVID-19. So thank you to everybody. And thank you to everybody that's at our hospital who's also working remotely, doing the best they can, finding new and innovative ways to contribute on a daily basis. So thank you to everybody at our hospital on that front. And we're now pleased to be joined by I consider him a friend now because this is the second time he's appeared on one of our platforms. Raptors broadcaster Jack Armstrong. Jack, I think we're going to need some adjustment with your camera there.
Hold on there.
There you go.
There you go.
Perfect. There we go.
All right, here we go.
So, Raptors broadcaster who hasn't really done much in terms of basketball, I don't think, in the last 3 months, but thanks for joining us, Jack. We really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem, Darryl and Chris. Actually, I've done a lot of basketball. They've had us doing a lot of, I've done a lot of Sports Center hits for TSN, and I've done a lot of different shows for MLSE and different town hall speaking engagements and all that. So I've actually been pretty busy, which has been good because you want to stay busy during this time. And so nonetheless, I'm hoping and fingers crossed that we get back to basketball at the end of July. And all signs point in that direction if things continue to progress.
So aside from working and doing some of the creative things you've been doing on that front, what have you been doing to stay busy, stay healthy, and kind of manage your health or your wellness in this kind of strange and unusual time?
Well, I run every day. Actually, I ran this morning. We're taping here early. So, I try to get up every morning and get out for a run. Yesterday, I ran in the morning, and I played about 2.5 hours of tennis last night. I've been out trying to get up this afternoon. Late this afternoon, I'm going to play 9 holes of golf with a few buddies, and then we have a socially distant beer in the parking lot. and then you head home for dinner. But I've been trying to stay busy in that way. And we also have a 4-month-old puppy, a golden retriever. So that keeps me really busy. Once I get off this, I'll be running around, head her out earlier. And so it's fun. It's busy when you have a puppy around the house. But no, trying to keep, I think it's important to get out and exercise or walk. My wife walks a lot every day, and I've gone for walks with her, and and I just try to stay busy. And I read a lot. I like to read. I find it relaxing, calming. So here I am. I'm getting through it, and now that the weather's changing, you can be outside a lot more.
Last time we saw you, Jack, you were just about to hop on a plane back to California. Just curious, were you, going there, were you confident the Raptors were going to pull this off? And then maybe you could explain what the feeling was like to be there live and through that championship.
It's interesting. Ontario Shores will always be part of my memory of winning an NBA championship. Literally about 10 feet from me is the signed basketball you gave me the day I spoke there. So, every time I see it, I think of speaking at a beautiful place right on the lake, and then getting in my car and going to the airport. And actually, it was funny. I had to speed to the airport because I was able to hop on an earlier flight to San Francisco. That they were able to, there was like one seat left, and they were like, "Can you make it? We'll hold the seat for you if you can make it." So I'm like, "Well, I'm going to make it." And I did, and I got on the plane, and I would say half the people, more than half of the people on the plane were huge Raptor fans. So I'm in like row 27B or something like that. People are like, "Wait a minute, you're the guy that's going to be calling the game on TV tomorrow night. You're in row 27B." So I had people the whole plane ride sending me glasses of wine back and all that. So from what I remember of the trip, it was pretty good. But it was amazing. I felt confident. I really did. You know how you wake up in the morning some days and you say, "This is going to be my day." Well, those 2 days felt that way, like speaking at Ontario Shores, and then that whole day of travel, getting out to the West Coast, and just the positive vibes I was feeling. And then I landed in San Francisco that night, and there's a beautiful, like, pink sunset. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And then the next day I got up and got up real early, and you have a bunch of radio shows, and you sit and do your game prep. And then I went out for a long run, and it was just like, you just have that karma, you have that vibe, you have that mojo, like, hey, we're doing this tonight. And so it was just one of those things where even though the Raptors lost Game 5 and everyone was disappointed, I think there was a good feeling that hey man, this team's good enough to do it, and they did.
I'll never forget, just Kyle Lowry starting that game the way he did. I think it was 8. He scored the first 8 points of the game, and up until then I wasn't too confident. But then after he started like that, it's like, okay, maybe this is going to happen. When you think about your career and all the things you've done, coaching side and broadcasting, not many people get a chance to come into an organization, that early in its history, and then, watch it grow, and been through some, the high times with Vince Carter, and then, those other eras where maybe the Andrea Bargnani era, which maybe not as glorious, and then to see what, the culmination of that last year, can you put in perspective, what that meant to you from a professional perspective, or maybe even from a personal perspective, because your life is so intertwined with basketball?
Well, I've been with the Raptors 22 years now, and the Raptors are in existence for 25. And it was kind of like almost a startup company when I got there. I was still coaching the first 3 years that they were in existence. And then when I got to the Raptors, it was still an organization in its infancy. So I feel very fortunate to kind of get on early with a startup company and grow with it. And what do startup companies go through? Some most of them have their shares of twists and turns and ups and downs and struggles. But ultimately, the good ones find their footing and figure it out. And to me, I think that was something that was really cool about the Raptors, to see them hit their stride. And so much credit belongs to, Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster and their management group, and the coaching of Dwayne Casey and his staff, and then Nick Nurse and his staff. And, and you look at, the tremendous ownership and leadership from Larry Tannenbaum and Dale Lastman and the folks at Bell and Rogers, their commitment, to win a title, you got to be all in and committed financially and in every way, shape, or form. So there were all those things were there, and I think you learn some hard lessons along the way, how to do things, how not to do things, and I think last year in year 24. They were in that space where they knew exactly how they wanted to go about it, and they did it.
So, that was an epic time for Toronto. Following that, had you ever seen anything, the Kawhi Leonard contract part where, following on the airport and all that? Have you ever seen anything like that, sort of the fervor around a contract signing before?
Chris, I was disappointed, obviously, that Kawhi decided to go home. On the other hand, I respect the fact that he's from Southern California, grew up in Riverside, went to college in San Diego, and his family is out there. And, the opportunity to play in LA was important to him from a family perspective. And I respect that, and Kawhi is a good guy, and Kawhi did a tremendous job for the Raptors in the year he was here. He delivered the goods. And he's an independent contractor, and he has the negotiated right to go where he wishes to play. So fine. And while he was here, he was a true blue, 100% professional in every way, shape, or form. So my hat's off to him. Was it disappointing he left? Yeah. But I also found it, to your point, very funny about the helicopters flying over the motorcade and all that. To me, in a negative sense, because he left, something really positive jumped out at me as well. Basketball is really, really a big deal now in Canada. You saw that when the Raptors on their great playoff run and, in the finals. But you've seen it the last 6 years, and you'll see it again. Hopefully we have basketball again this summer. People love the sport, and they love the Raptors. It's a national team. So to me, in that negative, you got to find the positive. And the positive is that people love it. And the fact that they're willing to do that, it was almost like the OJ car chase. That's what it reminded me of in the white Bronco. And so to me, I look at it, it says to me that, hey, basketball is incredibly popular, and I'm proud to be part of that.
Before we move on to maybe some other subjects, a guy on our team that Chris and I work with, he wanted us to ask you a question because he'd been having this debate. Who, given his short time here, how would you compare Kawhi's impact versus Vince Carter's?
Well, Vince Carter, quite frankly, the Raptors, Vancouver was already in trouble when Vince Carter was drafted by the Raptors, and the Raptors were in year 4, and the Vancouver Grizzlies were in year 4. And there was a lot of naysayers saying, I don't know if the NBA is going to make it in Canada. So I think that you look at the impact that Vince Carter had on the growth of the sport, and the fact that Canada is number 2 in the world right now in representation in the NBA behind the United States, that's amazing. And where'd that come from? Well, you ask all those kids that are playing in the NBA right now, whether directly or indirectly, they were lured into the sport in a lot of ways by what Vince Carter did as a Raptor. A few years later, while Vince Carter was a member of the Raptors, the Vancouver Grizzlies unfortunately moved to Memphis. I call that one of the worst trades in history. You go from, Mickey Mantle to Mickey Mouse. I still can't understand why they're in Memphis. But to me, I think Vince Carter really solidified Toronto and solidified Canada as a market. Even though it didn't work out well at the end where he left, basketball was here to stay. And then when you look at Kawhi, Kawhi represents a championship. He was a hired gun. You knew it when they traded for him. Maybe he'd stay, maybe he wouldn't. But the likelihood was he was a hired gun. And he delivered the goods. So to me, I think in different ways they impacted the game. And I think we truly won't know his impact until maybe 10, 12, 14 years ago from now, when you see kids, young ladies that are playing in college basketball, the WNBA, or young men who are playing college basketball or playing in the NBA or overseas or whatever, the impact he made. But there's no doubt in my mind both made a big one.
Two questions going forward, Jack. So I saw Adam Silver say that players that don't go to Orlando won't be in breach of contract. I'm wondering what maybe you expect when we reopen and start basketball again, what it might look like. And also, are teams better prepared to start from like right off the gate that are going to have a better opportunity? Like what's the makeup of a team that can go into the situation and hit the ground running?
I don't think any of us really know. I know as a former coach that the group I'd probably want is a mature one, smart, adaptable, ability to shift gears quickly, deal with a lot of unusual things, because it's going to be something none of them have ever experienced before. So a kind of a level-headed group that doesn't get too high, too low, that has good professional habits, that, in a situation like that, it's not going to be overwhelmed by it. So that to me is probably going to be something. Health is going to be a huge factor, fitness, all those things. And we don't know any of that. I think the games will get better as they keep playing. In terms of Adam Silver, I think they're going to do everything possible to make it as safe an environment as you can possibly make it. I mean, they've consulted with the finest experts in the world. They're going to dot the I's and cross the T's. Will there be a few mistakes made? I'm sure there will be. None of us are perfect. But I do think there's good intent there. Is there an intent for the love of the sport? Yeah. Is there an intent as well from a business perspective? Yeah, sure is, on both sides, not just the owners, but the players. So I think there's an open dialogue between the Players Association and the ownership group and Adam Silver. And, unlike Major League Baseball, I think there's a relationship of respect, and I think they'll work it out as best as they can.
One of the things, certainly in Canada, during this pandemic, that's been a focus or a topic of focus has been mental health and the impact of mental health during this pandemic on people who have their lives turned upside down. And we look at professional athletes and we just think of them as these fine-tuned machines that go out there and they produce and they put up their stat lines and move on. But all the elements of restarting the season, being in isolation or in quarantine in one place, potentially being away from families, not having, whether it be those habits or traditions or superstitions, like all those things, it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be really strange. Do you worry about the impact of these athletes at all and going through this and in a health crisis, having to go and go to work?
Well, I think they'll be in the finest of accommodations. They'll be in a 5-star hotel, at the very least a 4-star hotel. The challenge is, and people sometimes forget, they go, oh, we're going to Orlando. Okay, well, going to Orlando maybe in March, you go, okay, that's a place I'd love to be. Orlando in August, I'm not sure a lot of people sign up for that. It's hot, really hot. And it is a thunderstorm every afternoon. And, you're not doing a lot outside. Well, guess what? You're going to be in the gym a lot. Okay, fine. And you're going to be in your hotel room. But, unlike maybe the Vegas Summer League, where you're not going outdoors a lot in Vegas either in the summer, at the very least, there's all the other entertainment options. That doesn't exist in Orlando. Plus, you're going to be in a restricted environment. So I can see some of the concerns that players would have, particularly if you're going to be there, potentially if you're a truly contending team that could be there for 3 months, that could wear on you for a while. So in spite of the fact that people say, well, they're eating the best food and they're staying at the nicest place and this and that and the other thing, there will be some of those considerations in place. I respect the fact that the NBA does a good job with that as well. I think they're at the forefront of mental health. Teams all have someone who's obviously a team psychologist that's available, and I think they put that front and center, not only physical health but mental health, and as we know, that impacts performance. So just like a sprained ankle impacts performance, your mindset, more importantly than the sprained ankle, impacts performance. And, so to me, it's very important. And I know teams understand that, respect that.
So at the same time that we're talking about the pandemic, there's also this public discourse about racial inequality and what's going on we see in the States. And it's up in Canada too. There's been a number of protests. I'm just curious from some of the players have talked about not wanting to play because of that, not just the pandemic. And Darryl and I talked a little bit about responsibility of athletes that are sort of bringing this to the attention of the masses, and some people feeling that it's not a place for an athlete to talk about it. Just maybe you can provide your perspective on the role of athletes when it comes to social issues.
Hey, look, I'm totally fine with it. The reality is they're paid to do a job, and that's performed between the lines. And if they're doing that to the best of their ability and performance to the best of their ability, what they do outside the lines is their own business. And if they choose to take on social causes, I applaud it. I think it's great. I look at a guy like LeBron James, and I know he's definitely in the camp of basketball is an important part of my life. And the fact that I've had success in basketball has given me the opportunity to make an impact for others. And you look at what he's done, he's made a tremendous impact in our society. And he wants to play because I think he feels like that platform gives him a greater voice. Many athletes say, well, no, that doesn't help. Well, I disagree with that. I agree with what LeBron James, his viewpoint is that I think if you don't have it, you become kind of John Q. Public, where you're just another guy in the crowd holding up a sign or raising your voice, and that's good too. I'm totally fine with that. But if you're someone of influence because of your role and your title, you raising that sign and you raising your voice and having something to say maybe allows people to follow you, and you can captivate them with your message. So again, the most important thing for all these players is their health, physical, mental, and as long as that's being looked after, I think the opportunity to express yourself will be there in Orlando, because I'm not an expert on social media and all this stuff, but I think you can tweet and do all that other stuff from anywhere in the world. So to me, I think that the people will be watching and people will be listening. And so to me, that's my viewpoint. And I think actions speak louder than words. And I think LeBron James's actions off the court, to me, as a young man who grew up with with no dad, with his mom, and he's been a good son, he's been a good husband, he's been a good father, and he's been a good man in the community, and he's a heck of a player as well.
With what's going on in the world, I wonder what your perspective is, given the protests and George Floyd and what's going on in Atlanta. People watching this and listening to this may not realize this, but you have 3 sons. You and your wife adopted 3 black boys. And you've talked a little bit about the dynamic in the past, the dynamic of your kind of unique family story and some of your experiences. But what we're going through today is unlike anything I've ever seen. And so I wonder, as a father in your situation, how do you feel about what's going on in the world right now?
Well, I pray every day about it. Because you think every day, you reflect every day on it, because you're right. My situation is unique. I'm the father of three African-American sons who are 23, 22, and 21. I've had the DWB talk with them driving while black. We've covered a lot of topics. We've lived those topics in some way, shape, or form. Thankfully, in the community that we live in, people kind of know my wife and I, and they know who our kids are, and people have been very respectful. But I'm sure there are others that don't know who we are. There are others that, under their breath, maybe say something. So be it. But I think you got to push through that. And to me, it pains me to see it. Our country's had this stuff for a few hundred years, the United States. It's disgraceful. Bottom line, it's disgraceful. And it's got to change. We have to find ways to listen to each other and find middle ground. There's a line I use which I think speaks volumes about what is going on right now. Rules without relationships equal rebellion. Rules with relationships equal respect and results. So we need to build bridges. We need to have relationships. We need to have common ground. Rather than black, white, we need gray. We need diplomacy. We need people to come together and hear, not only listen to what we say, but actually hear it. And not only hear it, but listen to it. And ponder and discern and kind of find different ways in a collaborative sense that we can come together that creates respect and that creates results. So there has to be balance. And I've just tried to say to my kids that be respectful of authority and treat others how you want to be treated. At the same time, there are going to be some things that happen to you that aren't fair and aren't right. And, you got to be able to react to it in a way that doesn't put you in a compromising position, and at the same time, you maintain your integrity as a man, and these are the same discussions I've had when I was a coach. I mean, I look at the majority of the players that I recruited and coached in my time as a college coach, they were black. I look at my 22 years in the NBA. It's the same in terms of my interactions, which I'm very proud to be part of. So I think there's an opportunity, and I heard Spike Lee recently. I think he was on Jimmy Kimmel, if I'm not mistaken, and he was promoting a new movie that he has out about Vietnam, and he was, talking about what's going on. And the one thing that really jumped off the page of me that he said was, as heartbroken as I am about this and how disgusting this is, and this continues to go on, I'm seeing so many white protesters out there and people of all different colors supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, that people are coming together and saying there has to be a way that we come together and make it happen. And so it's I always say sometimes life takes a wrong turn in the right direction, and the fact that we have had this pandemic and people are a little closer to home than they normally would be, and there's a few less distractions in terms of sports and concerts and all that. I think it's given us more time to reflect and see what's going on, and therefore it gives us an opportunity to kind of look in the mirror and ponder and reflect on maybe where each and every one of us are at in terms of relations with each other, and how can I be better? How can I improve? How can I walk to the other side of that bridge and find a way? So to me, I think moderation and finding a way of again, that gray, that ability to understand each other is important.
I was going to say, Jack, and you kind of touched on it. Does this feel different? I mean, when I look at, I don't know, about 5 years ago, Fenway Park would have come out and said, Tory Hunter's right. We've seen racism by fans, or NASCAR would have been banning the Confederate flag 5 years ago. I think it just feels different that people are finally coming forward, whether it's, people or organizations, to say, yeah, this does exist and we need to fix it.
I'm with you. You think if Colin Kaepernick played in the NBA, he wouldn't be working right now? Right. Come on. I think our league is very progressive, and I think Colin Kaepernick, somehow, some way, there would have been a discussion, a middle ground found. Maybe it's 30%, 70%, 40, 60, 50, 50, 55, 45, whatever. But somehow, some way, there'd be a tremendous discourse and discussion, and they try to figure out some way to accommodate. So to me, I agree with you. I can reflect just a few months ago driving by a house that had a Confederate flag flying. That I'm like, who lives in that house? What's their story? Are they nuts? You think about Canadian soldiers and United States soldiers and French and British, and they go into Nazi Germany and liberate Europe. And do you think they would have allowed the swastika to fly in Germany? Are you kidding me? Well, guess what? In the United States, the Confederate forces lost. Just like the German forces lost. When you lose, you don't have those rights anymore. So guess what? In the United States, you got one flag. And I don't see the swastika in Germany. I see a German flag now. It's not East Germany, West Germany anymore. It's Germany. And they're a peaceful country, and now they're an ally of Canada, and they're an ally of the United States. So why in this country are we allowing a Confederate flag to fly when they lost? They got their ass kicked. They lost. They no longer have that right. This is one flag, one country. And I think that thing represents something that's bad.
Well, it really feels like things are changing, or eyes have been opened. I don't know if things are changing. We're not maybe there yet, but certainly the conversations are changing. And I hope athletes kind of take this opportunity. A lot of them have spoken up, but keep doing it. Because I've seen, in this period of time, you've seen lots of different things on social media. And I saw a clip from Muhammad Ali from like 1974, I think it was, and talking about racial issues. And it might as well have been filmed last week, like the issues that he was talking about. It's like, it's hard to believe that we're not there yet.
I agree with you. And we are. At the same time, I look at the youth of today and what this pandemic has done. I look at the power of the emails and the internet and social media and, the coverage we have, television, radio, print, whatever it may be. People are exposed to more. They're seeing all sides. And now, are there times where people are too hypersensitive and offended way too easily? Yeah, there's a lot of that too. But I think that we have an opportunity here because it's been front and center. You think about all the different racial issues over the years. There was so many other things going on in society at the same time. It never got the true attention that I think it's getting now. And to me, I hope that this few week period begins to move the needle a little bit in the direction where now our young people can say, no, we're not going back there. We're going to keep pushing we're going to get into the end zone. You know, we're going to keep pushing the ball down the field and drive it down the field, and we're getting a touchdown.
Well, this was a touchdown, this whole experience, Jack. I know you have to get going to another obligation, but thanks for remembering us, answering our emails, and joining us, like, to talk about, you know, basketball and all the other things going on in the world right now. It's quite enjoyable. So thank you, and all the best to you.
Well, thank you so much, Chris and Darryl. And I have to make one statement before I leave. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and there's only one Dodgers. Remember that?
Yeah, I kept bugging him about that hat.
The 1955 Brooklyn Dodgers, okay? Jackie Robinson, Gil Hodges, okay? All right, so remember that there's one Dodgers, and then Walter O'Malley shamefully moved his team to Chavez Ravine. The one thing, though, I am a fan of the LA Dodgers because I'm a Fordham guy. I have my bachelor's and master's from Fordham University. And Vin Scully, who called the Brooklyn Dodger games and then the Los Angeles Dodger games, is one of my all-time favorite broadcasters. The guy is just an iconic figure and a class act through and through. So I'll give you that, Darryl, that at least the Dodgers have Vin Scully. But nonetheless, and by the way, the Yankees did beat them in the World Series a few times. I think it was 77, 78. You did get us, I think it was 80 or 81. I can't remember.
No.
But, and on top of that, I will give you credit, though, I really believe this. And I'm saying that with incredible respect. The team that, when Kirk Gibson hit the home run against the Oakland A's, I think that might be, if you look at that roster, that might be the worst team to ever win a World Series.
Yes.
And you know, Kirk Gibson goes to bat and hits that home run off of Eckersley. They win game one. He doesn't play again, but the A's were dominant. They were loaded, and they got beat because they were completely psyched out. And as we know, Oral Hershiser was just lights out that year in '88. So there's my baseball.
There you go.
You know, so we're talking basketball. I'm probably maybe a bigger baseball fan than I am a basketball fan. And by the way, what's going on in Major League Baseball right now is a complete and total history.
It's ridiculous.
They need to get the, you know, we're talking about mental health. They need to get their heads examined.
Well, Vin Scully is a treasure. I miss him greatly, being able to listen to their ball games at 11 o'clock at night or whatever on this coast. So I can talk about baseball all day. So maybe we'll do another one where we just talk baseball. But anyways, all the best, Jack. Really appreciate your time, and stay safe.
Guys, thanks so much. Peace. Thank you.